your CD drives, pen drives, or it satellites. So those things we call it as a physical units, and the space we are using is a disk space, or it can be a workstation. So these kind of things we call it as a spaces. Then the logical names include the object names, file names, or the class names that we are just storing all the details into it where we are trying to store it. And next thing is the access to shared data. That means all the data may be stored in a databases, and how we are going to store these databases are an example for handling the global resources. So when we are using with respect to an uh, ATM example, what we are trying to do, we are trying to have an access with the bank code. So it will access the bank code. Based on a bank code, it will fetch the account number, verify the account number. So if it is a unique, then it will send to the consortium, and it will identify if whether it is a unique account number. If it is a unique account number, then it will process for a further. And the next thing is we need to choose a software control strategy. So when you say a software control strategy, we have two different types of software control strategy. So one is a procedure driven control. So in a procedure driven control, what we are trying to do is we are trying to control the all the programs within a program code. That means we are trying to identify the problem statement. We are choosing a particular software on which the problem has to be resolved by identifying the different modules. So once the problem is being identified and the program code is being written, so it follows some procedures. So when the input is going to arrive, so how the control is going to resume, so when the call will take, so when the program counter will be uploaded, so what are the different procedure calls, so all these things will be taken care with respect to the procedure driven control. So the major advantage of this procedure control is it is easy to implement with the conventional languages. So whatever the languages that we are trying to use, so it is easier to implement that. But the only disadvantage is, so the sequential flow control and this concurrency. So we cannot follow any concurrency, or we cannot run any parallel program when we are trying to use with respect to the precision driven control. Say for example, it can be a C++ or a Java. It can be called as a procedural languages. And the next thing is event driven control. So when we say a event driven control, so in a event driven control, what we are trying to use is we are trying to identify the how the control is being decided. So how the dispatcher or a monitor will do the entire system. So whether the operating system is going to provide any evidences, or how it is going to help to run a particular application. So to do the uh, to run the application, what it will do, it will use a procedure called as a callback procedure. So when an event is going to occur, it will send the signal, and it will enable the input, and it will not wait for until it is taken. So after taking the input immediately, it will dispatch the controller, and the controller will come to the input, and it will take the input, and it will execute the further process. So that is how the event driven system is going to access. And the next thing is concurrent control. So when we are using the when we can run the system, or we can run the process parallelly. So when we are trying to run the process parallelly, it should be independent of object. Whatever the task that we are assigning to each and every control, it should have a separate task. So that we call it as a one-way messages between the objects. So here what happens? It can be a system can be implemented directly with one-way messages. And the next thing is internal control. So when we say internal control, what we need to have, we need to identify how the developer is going to expand an operation. So what are the different types of operations that are there, and how the low level operations can be performed. So the low level operations can be like calling the operations or executing the procedures, creating the batches. So all these things can be a low level operations. So that has to be implemented. So all these internal operations will be indicated with the object interaction, how the object is being implemented. Depending upon the object implementation we are trying to implement. So all these things will be taken with respect to algorithm. So when you say algorithm for having the concurrency control, we need to use a parallel processing. So when we say a parallel processing, we need to identify how many threads are there and how to control that all the threads into a single thread and how the threads can be executed. That has to be taken care. And the next thing is other paradigms. So when you say other paradigms, there are two other things. So the first thing is we need to identify whether it is a rule-based system or whether it is a logical programming system. So if it is a logical programming system, so whether it is a procedural or non-procedural, all these things has to be identified. So the developers has to identify what type of languages that they can use. So whether they can use a artificial intelligence, whether they can use a knowledge-based programming, whether it can be a procedural languages like C Sharp or C++ or a Java that has to be identified. So that is about a controlling the strategy. And the next thing is handling the boundary condition. So when we say handling the boundary conditions, so there are different kinds of issues. So the first issue is the initialization. So the system must be proceeded with the initial state and initial state. So from the initial state, it will go to the steady state. So how it moves? The first thing is it should initialize the data, constant data. It should take the parameters. It should identify whether it is a local variable or a global variable. And depending upon a hierarchy of the class, it has to be implemented. And the next thing is termination. So when we say a termination, so in a termination, we need to identify internal objects. So how the internal objects is being identified, how the external task has to be carried out, whether the during the termination of a particular task, whether any notification has to be sent. So all these things has to be taken care. And the next thing is failure. So sometimes what happens, when we are running a process or program, so failure can happen due to the unplanned. So we need to identify why the system is raising a error from the user. So whether it is due to the system resources or from the external breakdown, we need to identify what is the main reason for the failure. So that can be in terms of design. If the designer has not planned well, then what happens? It can lead to the failure. And the next thing is setting the trade-off priorities. So for setting the trade-off priorities, we need to identify what are the goals, whether we are able to achieve the goals. So whether these goals are incompatible, so whether it is desirable, so how far the functionalities can be achieved, that has to be taken care. So how do we take care of that? So depending upon a system designer, so that system designer must ensure that how to make a design trade-offs. So whether all that priorities has to be included. So which is the highest priority and which is the lowest priority. So which task has to be carried out. So whether all this things are able to be satisfied with respect to the packages, with respect to the machines, that has to be taken care. So when you say a setting trade-off, so it can be based on its priorities, like numerical accuracy. It should have a that means we are identifying 4 different parameters. So based on speed, memory availability, portability, and the cost. So the speed can be 53%, the memory allocation can be 31%, portability should be at least 15% and the cost should be 1%. So like this, depending upon a parameter, we need to identify the things. So this is all about the chapter 14. Sridhar, do you have any doubts with respect to any other chapters? If you have, you can ask me.
No, ma'am.
So, or else I will continue with the chapter 15. That completes the chapter 14 up to that setting trade-off. Okay.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay, the next chapter we have is a class design, how to design a class. So before designing a class, what we have done, we have done a different phases like analysis phase. We have a different phase like analysis phase and a design phase. So when it comes for a analysis, we have discussed in a previous module how what are the two different analysis. One is a domain analysis and one is a application analysis. So after the analysis, we will go with respect to the design part and then with respect to the class implementation. So when we are referring for a design class, first we will discuss on the class design. So when we want to analyze any particular information, it should be maintained with respect to high level of information. So how the information has to be performed. So it comes for a class design. So when we say a class design, we need to have a we need to use a how the designing strategy should be taken care. So what are the analysis model that should have that should include, and after including how the decision can be taken care. So in this, what we are trying to do is during the design. So we need to identify, we need to choose the different ways to realize the analysis of the class. So whether in terms of execution time, or it can be in terms of a memory, or it can be in terms of a cost. So all these three things are be has to be taken care. So how to take care of all this operation? So what we need to do, we need to identify different categories. So what are the different steps has to be taken care. So to take care of these things, execution, memory, cost, all these things. So what we need to do, we need to identify the algorithms, identify the complex operations. So how the complex operations can be broken down into a simpler operations. So how the decomposition can be done from higher level to the lower level, that has to be identified. Then other than that, what we need to identify, we need to identify the ease of implementation, maintainability and extensibility. So these are the important concerns. So the next thing is object-oriented design is a iterative process. So when you say a iterative process, so what we can identify, so how do we do that? So the first thing is we need to identify how to add a new operations. So how to add the attributes, how to add the classes, and how to create a relationship among the objects. So to do this, the class design involves various following steps. So these steps are, first step is bridging the gap from high level requirements to the low level requirements, realize the use case with the operations, formulate an algorithm for each operations, recurse downward to design operations that support higher level operation, refactor the model for a model for a higher, cleaner design, optimize the access path, verify the behavior that has to be manipulated, adjust the class structure to increase the inheritance, and organize the classes and association. So the first topic is we need to bridge the gap from high level requirements to low level services. So in that, when we are choosing a bridging the gap, what we need to do, we need to identify. So here I have listed of three different things. So one is a One is a desired feature, one is a gap, and one is the available features. So all the three things are there. All the two things are there. We know what are the features that has to be developed for the particular application and what are the resources that are available. So in between these two, how do we connect the gap? So what is the gap in between these two features that has to be identified? So to identify that, we need to know we need to identify the several sources. So how do we identify several sources? So the first thing is use case, second thing is application command, and the third thing is system operation and the services. So these are the high level needs. That means we need to design a use case. So when you say a use case, we are identify who are the external users, so how they are communicating with respect to the system, and what are the application commands. So application commands can be based on a GUI, or if it is a Unix based, it can be a command based. And the system operation. So once the user is sending a request, so how the system is going to perform all its operation, and what services that the user is asking, and what services should be provided, that has to be identified. So to do that, these resources include the operating, other than this, it includes the operating system infrastructure, class libraries, and the previous application. So if we are trying to manipulate the existing application, then we are keeping that as a reference. So we can add some class libraries. We are identifying the infrastructure of the operating system. So whether whatever the development that we are trying to do, whether all this development can be maintained with respect to the operating system infrastructure, that has to be identified. So the next thing is we need to identify how to bridge this gap. So to bridge this gap, here there is a example. So as I said, we have three different features. So one is a desired features, one is a intermediate elements, and one is a available resources. So for all these three things, what we need to do, we need to identify. So this square box represents different features that are there for any particular application. So we have identified various features for a particular application. So for that, what we are using the intermediate elements. So these intermediate elements can be an attributes, it can be an operations, it can be a UML constructs, it can be a sequence diagram, or it can be a flow chart. So how the operation is going to flow. So that can be taken as a intermediate elements. So the next thing is we have available resources. So when we say available when we say available resources, so these available resources can be our use cases, application, all these things will come under the available resources. So that entire gap which I shown in a previous slide, so this gap is being filled by the intermediate elements. So this feature will be implemented by using the intermediate elements. So that intermediate elements will use of whatever the resources are there. So based on all these resources, it is trying to use the application. So that is about the bridging the gap. So the next thing is realizing the use case. So we know that we after a class model we have a use case model. So when we say a use case model, we have a actors and we have a use cases, where the actors are the external direct user of a system. So when we need to define a use cases. So what is this use cases? These use cases are the required behavior or behavior of a system or the functionality that they have to do when they have to be realized. So to define the
ಮೊಬೈಲ್ ಬರ್ತದೆ, ಮಳೆ ಬರ್ತದಲ್ಲ, ಏನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀಯ ಗುಡುಗು ಸಿಡ್ಲು ಬಂದ್ರೆ ಇದಕ್ಕೆ ಹೋಗಲ್ವಾ? ಲ್ಯಾಪ್ಟಾಪ್ ಆನ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೋಬಾರ್ದ?
Okay, so we need to identify, but they do not define the its realization, because so when that particular functionalities has to be matter. So those concepts may not be realized. We need to choose the purpose of the design. That means why we are trying to make a design. So the first thing is we need to choose among options, and the second thing is we need to prepare an implementation. So based on these two, we need to decide. And the next thing is we need to define the use case. So when we are trying to define a use case, so this use case has to be defined on a system level behavior. So when you say a system level behavior, we are trying to identify what are the properties of the system in terms of attributes and the operations. So when you are trying to include operations, we can include a new type of operations, and new objects can be provided to extend the behavior, and to improve the bridging of the gap between the resources and the desired features that can be taken care of. And the next thing is we need to identify the responsibilities. So how do we define our responsibilities for a particular use case? So it can be defined as a something that an object knows, or something what it must do. That means an object, each and every object has its own responsibilities. So maybe in terms of a, if we take a airline reservation, so I identifying the ticketing system, when to make a reservation, so when, which are the occupied seats, so how the payments are being done. So all these things can be identified through the behavior of an object. So these operations, that pavement ticketing system, all these things can be taken as a operation. So each operations will have its own responsibilities. So when you say a payment, it has to identify the user account. So it has to verify what type of operation, what is the manner, all these things has to be identified. Say we have taken an example of a ATM. So when we take an ATM, there are different operations: withdrawal, deposit, and the transfer. So I have written here only one with respect to the withdrawal system. So when you say a withdrawal system, this withdrawal use case can have a various responsibilities. So the first thing is it has to it has to get the amount from the customer. Once the customer enters the amount, it has to verify whether the amount is covered by the account balance. So after remaining the account balance, the amount has to be drawn. Next thing is verify the amount within a bank policies. So whatever the amount that he is drawing, so whether it is within the bank policies or not. And the next thing is verify the ATM, whether that ATM has a sufficient cash, whether it can disperse the funds, whether it can debit the account. So all these things are the example of a responsibilities. Similarly, what we can have, we can create a responsibilities for a deposit. So it has to get the account from a customer. It has to take the envelope from the customer when he is making a payment. So whether it has been credited to the account or not. So if it is credited, what is the post balance after the deposit? That is a responsibility of the deposit. And the next thing is transfer. So when we say a transfer, what we can have, we have some responsibilities. So those responsibilities include get the source account, get the target account. So from whom to whom the amount has to be transferred, that has to be identified. So after identifying that, it has to verify how many how much of amount is being transferred, that has to be taken care. So these are the responsibilities that has to be taken care. So all these things, responsibilities can be taken as a use case, and how this use case is being handled. That is what it deals with, the realizing the use case. So the next one is designing the algorithm. So when we say designing an algorithm, so the step is, first we need to choose an algorithm that minimize the cost of the implementing operation. That means what? Whenever we are trying to implement a class model, we are identifying the class attribute. So how the links are being created, so how the traversal can be done with respect to the object constraint language. So all these things are going to happen. So when we say a class model, but it cannot be fully expressed with respect to some operations. So you cannot consider all the operation and you cannot write with respect to the OCL expression. So what we can do, so the other way is we need to use a pseudocode. So how this pseudocode can be taken? So that pseudocode can be represented in terms of a algorithm. So all these algorithms will give the programming details. So it can be in terms of a transitive closure or it can be in terms of a, involving a growth, all these things. So here what we are trying to identify when we are trying to use a simple algorithms, we are can face a bottleneck situation for a particular applications when we are trying to execute. So that case we call it as a 20 is to 80. That means 80% of the time will be considered for a 80% will be taken as a execution time, while 20% is being taken as a operation consumption time. So based on this, the operations can be executed from a particular program with a smaller level of improvements. So when we are trying to use this, we need to identify how much of time is consumed. Say for example, if you are taking the n number of elements for a sorting, so what could be the average size? So how many number of operations can be done? Either it can be in terms of a 10 by 2 operations. So if it is a binary search, it can be a log n operations. So if it is a hash search, it takes less than 2 operations. So depending upon a type of a sorting algorithm or type of an algorithm, we can uh, identify how long the time is taken to improve the system. So when we are choosing an algorithm, there are three main properties that we can have. So the first thing is computational complexity. So when we say a computational complexity, so what happens when we are identifying any application, we are trying to use a hardware and a software requirements. So after identifying that, when you have implemented any application, so what is the majority of the processor time to function the data structure size? So whether if you are taking a small amount of data, what should be the efficiency, whether the system is efficient for all the different values or not, that has to be identified. And the next thing is whatever the complexity of algorithm that we are trying to use. So whether it is based on a constant time, whether it is a linear, quadratic or an exponential, that has to be taken care. So here what we are trying to identify, we are trying to identify the bubble sort algorithm which requires a proportionality n square. That means it takes a time of n square n to the power of 2 to sort a bubbles, to have a bubble sort. So we have alternative algorithms for a bubble sort. Either it can be a uh, either it can be a quick sort, merge sort, or any other sorting. So we can identify what is the time taken to sort the same n number of elements. So whichever the smallest time is there, that we can take it as a best algorithm. So in that way, we are identifying the computational complexity. And the next thing is ease of implementation. So when we say ease of implementation, what we need to do, we need to identify whether the algorithm is a very simple algorithm which can make a very good performance with respect to the critical, or whether it is a non-critical operations. So after that, how the analysis can be done to carry out the class model forward to the minimal adjustment. That means from the class model, how we can go with respect to the implementation with respect to the implementation, how we are trying to implement using the programming languages. So the next thing is flexibility. So when I say a flexibility, what we are trying to identify. So the flexibility indicates that the program will be an already existing program. So if it is an already existing program, so how further you can make a improvement? If you are making any improvement, so what is the sufficient, whether whatever the algorithm that you're choosing right now, whether it is a sufficient algorithm or not. So whether any quick validation of the system has to be taken care. Any checking has to be done, that has to be taken care. Say for example, if you are taking an ATM as an example, we have an interactions between a bank consortium company and a bank computers. So it can be complex. So why it can be a complex? Because we are trying to use with respect to the uh, flexibility. We are using a distributed computing. So when you say distributing computing, it represents a various locations, various bank codes, everything can be included. It has to go to that particular banking website, it has to fetch, it has to validate the banking code, it has to validate the customer ID, it has to validate the account number. So after everything is being done, then only the processing can be taken care. So for that, what could be the best algorithm to match all these things? So it can be based on a pattern, or it can be based on an activity that can be carried out. That is the main thing that we need to identify. And the next thing is choosing the data structure is the second step. Choosing a data structure is a second step. So how to choose a proper data structure or a particular algorithm? Which data structure could be very fine, that we need to identify. So to identify that, what we are using, we are identifying what is the logical structure of the system information. So how the devising data structure has to be done, whether the efficient algorithm, whether there are any efficient algorithms are there. So the data structures may be in terms of arrays, or it can be in terms of a list, or it can be in terms of a stack, queue, sets, or a bag. So all these things has to be identified. So that is how we are trying to choose a data structure. And the next thing is we need to define a internal classes and a operation. So when you have identified a particular algorithm, so when you have decomposed that higher level operation, so with respect to the lower level operation, so what are the different analysis, what are the different operations that can be performed, that has to be identified. So for that, what we are trying to identify, we are trying to identify what are the intermediate results are there, if there are any intermediate results, so how we are trying to express them, that we need to ensure. Say for example, if you are taken an ATM as an example, the process transaction use case involves a customer receipt. So when a customer performs any transaction, it has to generate a receipt. So when what the system has to remember, the system has to remember for any kind of transaction which a customer is making, so that customer has to take care of the receipt, that has to be taken care of. And the next thing is assigning the operations to the classes. So whatever the class that we have identified, so we need to add the operations. So how best we can add the operations? So to identify the operations, what we need to do, we need to ask some questionnaires. So what are those questionnaires? The receiver of an action. So when you say a receiver of an action, so whether the object can act while the other object is performing the action. That means whether two objects can simultaneously operate with each other. So whether there are any dependencies. So whether both the operations are associated with each other, that has to be taken care. And the next thing is query versus update. So with respect to the query, what we need to identify, what are the objects that has to be changed, what are the objects query information that has to be provided. Say for example, if we take a ATM as an example, the customer may ask for a query that verify the balance amount, verify the bank code. So verify by my login has been logged. There are various queries, so those queries has to be answered. Next thing is focal class. When we say a focal class, we need to look at the classes and the association which are involved. So since the class is mostly located as a subnetwork, so how the classes and association can perform its operations. So whatever the operations that has been identified in each and every class, whether they are able to be executed. And the next thing is analogy to the real world. So when you say analogy to the real world, we are comparing the existing application or existing object with the other real world objects. So how the objects are being evolved. So what are the different operations that you can make? So here some operation can be push, move, activate, manipulate. All these are the operations. So when you say a push or when you say a activate, so your ATM card may be deactivated. So what you will do? You are trying to activate it by using a banking code. So it will identify whether he is a valid customer or not. So based on that, it is trying to identify the classes. So next we have some assigning the operation. So for that I need to explain with respect to the diagram that I will explain with respect to the next class. So another 2 topics are there. So if I complete that, module 4 will be completed. Okay. Any doubts, Madhu?
No, ma'am.
Okay, so I will continue tomorrow, 3rd hour. Tuesday, I have 10:50 class, right? I am going to take the classes. Okay.